When thinking of grading, we don't often think of jumping out of airplanes. However, I want you to think about which student you would rather have pack your parachute. Would you rather have the student that got an A, not because they knew the material, but because they came to class every day, turned in extra credit assignments, and earned participation points? Or would you rather have the student that got an A in class because he or she worked hard to demonstrate mastery on packing a parachute? This grading conundrum is often frustrating for teachers.
Standards-based grading is a philosophy that uses the gradebook to communicate students' strengths and weaknesses relative to the big ideas or standards of the course.
Most likely what you'll be familiar with a grading system is a grading system that goes from A to F, or is on a percentage-based scale. Number correct versus number incorrect, and that gets you to a letter grade. That's very different than the standards-based system that we're transitioning to in many ways. One of them, and probably the least important, is that we are switching from A's and B's and letter grades to a number scale, from 4 as the top and 1 as the bottom, with 0.5s in the middle, and 3 being the level that you're shooting for, that is the actual standard. You've met the standard when you've gotten to a 3.
In this example, John Doe received his quiz, and the score goes directly into the gradebook. John and John's parents do not know if the 14 out of 16 indicates he understands most of the big ideas assessed on the quiz, or if he just made one small mistake. This is not an example of standards-based grading. A score or percentage alone do not often tell the entire story. If the 2 points John missed represent an important concept he did not understand, this information is hidden in an assessment-based system. The focus may be on the percentage or grade rather than the learning.
The most important reason that the diocese is transitioning to the standards-based reporting system is the recognition that filling knowledge gaps and making sure students are on target or on a grade level target by the end of the year is the most important thing that we as teachers do. Even a student who's getting 95%, 95 out of 100, there's still something that they're not understanding, and with the standards-based reporting system we can target exactly what that skill is that they're not getting and fill that gap. And that works for students at all levels.
When using a standards-based system, the conversation between students and teachers often changes. In an assessment-based system, students may raise their grade by completing extra credit, doing better on the next test, or completing assignments that are past due. The conversation is not always on learning the big ideas and may instead be on doing something rather than learning. In a standards-based system, students' grades are based on their level of understanding related to the course standards. In order to raise students' grades, they need to demonstrate a higher level of understanding of past and future standards. New levels of understanding will replace old levels of understanding in the gradebook.
So the main switch in the standards-based reporting system is a switch in feedback. One that's more obvious is that the report card is going to change, that the report card will have the 4-3-2-1 scale. But more importantly is that the feedback mechanism for all grading of individual class assessments is going to change. And that while the report card will be more specific because it will have the standards on it, the feedback mechanism that's in the form of a rubric in actual classroom assessments is going to be far more specific than it was, and even more specific than the report card. Those rubrics will list exactly what the definition of a 4, a 3, a 2, and a 1 would be as far as mastery of a given standard, and your child's performance will actually be marked on that rubric. Using that tool, you can see if your child is at a 3, being they're meeting the standard and doing a great job, and we're happy about that. But you can also see if your child is not at standard, if they're performing on some skills at the 2 level. The performance descriptors of a 2 and a 1 will be specific enough for you to be able to actually help your child using that tool, saying this is specifically what they aren't understanding, and this is specifically what they need to understand in order to move to that 3. And so you can go home, you can work with your child to move them up that scale, but the teacher will also be able to use that feedback. If multiple people in their class are not understanding one particular point of a standard, they can recover that, and they will recover that in their class. And so using these rubrics is going to provide very specific and very actionable feedback for both the teacher and the parent and the student, and so that they can all have some accountability over that student's learning, and they can all have some guidance in what that child needs specifically in order to meet the standards for their grade level. As a parent, this allows you to really truly understand what are the skills at a 1, 2, 3, and a 4 level, and what you target specifically what your child isn't understanding. So if you're working on addition or subtraction and the area that your child isn't understanding is regrouping, it would be a mistake to work on your addition facts or your subtraction facts, because it's regrouping that your child isn't understanding. And so these rubrics will allow you to target your intervention specifically on regrouping rather than spending your time working on other things that aren't actually confusing your child. For those students who are above grade level and have already met the grade level target, they can know what the next vertical skill is that they can work on to master the next year's grade level information or master their content at a much more sophisticated level. And so not only do the rubrics provide very important information for students who are struggling to meet the standard, but also for students who have met the standard, a parent can say, okay, this is the next level on that standard, this is the next vertical skill that they need to master, and you are more than welcome, encouraged to do that with your child, and your child is more than able to pursue that for themselves. This, at this point, is a K-5 transition. This is redefining the way K-5 thinks about grading, rather than a grade point average, which has never been important in K-5 education. This is specifically targeting knowledge gaps and filling knowledge gaps to better prepare them for the middle school. Middle school students are still receiving an overall achievement grade, but they're also transitioning to getting that same actionable feedback from the rubrics that the K-5 students are benefiting from. The high schools are actually excited and completely understand what the 4-3-2-1 standards-based scale is, and have communicated to us many times that there's no problem with transitioning to that scale. The important thing to know is that the teacher their job is to get your child from the 2s to the 3s. They're starting hopefully at the 2s. They're ending the year at the 3s, meaning they've mastered that grade level. That's what the teacher is going to be teaching to, and making sure that your child understands. Remember that the 3 is the level that you are shooting for. That means that teacher is really confident that your child has performed at the grade level that they're supposed to be at for that assessment. A 4 is the top score, but that means they've literally gone beyond what the teacher has instructed. And so if as a parent you want to go and work with your kid and get them to that 4 level, that's a really great thing to do. But don't do that at the expense of skills that are at a 2 level. You want to make sure that you get your child all to 3s by the end of the year, and anything on top of that is icing on the cake.